Angi Gonzalez with the New York 1 Minute. The 117th Congress gavels in as members prepare to be sworn in. New faces in New York's delegation include Nicole Mayatakis and Richie Torres. It comes as the balance of power is still up in the air as control of the Senate rests on the results of Tuesday's runoffs in Georgia. The new Congress inheriting a crisis as more than 350,000 Americans have now died from coronavirus, and New York registers 1 million cases. Those numbers are expected to spike even higher in the wake of the holidays. Today expected to be another record travel day as people return home. Police search for a driver after a man is killed in an apparent hit and run in the Bronx last night. This happened just before 11 on a dangerous stretch of Bruckner Boulevard in Mott Haven. And the crowded race for mayor narrows just a bit as Max Rose announces he will not seek de Blasio's job this year. Rose lost his congressional re-election bid in November. A man is killed in an apparent hit and run on Bruckner Boulevard in the Bronx overnight. New York One's Amy Yensi is in Mott Haven with the very latest. Amy, a sad story so close to the new year just starting.
Absolutely, Angie, and it happened at East 140th Street and Bruckner.
The district attorney in Kenosha County, Wisconsin, is set to deliver his decision in the shooting of Jacob Blake this month. Blake was seriously injured after being shot 7 times in the back by police last August, fueling protests around the country. It is not clear if the officer who shot him will face charges. The decision could come in the first 2 weeks of January. Also out of the DA's office, an emergency declaration. Officials could use that to preemptively address potential civil unrest as a result of the decision. An appellate court rejects a last-ditch attempt to let the vice president override the 2020 presidential election results. Now, this case was brought by a Republican, Texas Representative Louis Gohmert, who wants Vice President Pence to interfere with Congress's electoral vote count. However, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals dismissed the case within hours, ruling that the lawmaker has no standing or authority to make such a demand. A district court first threw out Gohmert's lawsuit on Friday. Police are looking for the gunman after a woman is shot and killed in Queens. Cops say that the 37-year-old victim was shot 4 times in the stomach at around 3:30 yesterday afternoon. Now, it happened near 32nd Avenue and 97th Street in Flushing. She was pronounced dead at Elmhurst Hospital. No details yet on what led up to the attack. A man is killed in an apparent hit and run on Bruckner Boulevard in the Bronx overnight. Police discovered the man lying unconscious in the westbound lane of the Bruckner Service Road near East 140th Street in Mott Haven just before 11 last night. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators say that he appeared to have been hit by someone who drove away. We spoke to drivers in the area who say this incident, while tragic, doesn't come as a big shock.
I'm not surprised people drive recklessly on these roads, you know. It's crazy around here. And there's always police patrolling and stuff, but it never seems to be, contained.
Now, the area along Bruckner Boulevard where this took place actually game ends in a tie. The Jets, meanwhile, wrap up their season in New England after starting the season with 13 straight losses. Gang Green has now won 2 in a row. No matter what happens, the Jets are already locked into having the second pick in the NFL draft. Kickoff is just after 1. A dispute near a Bronx deli ends with one woman hitting another with her car and crashing into a storefront. Now, you can see the car wedged into the building in this Citizen app video. The FDNY tells us that this happened just after 5:30 p.m. yesterday on Gurlane Street and White Plains Road in Parkchester. That's where the 2 women got into an argument, and 27-year-old Shantice Myers threw canned food at 24-year-old Tahira Jones's car's windshield. Now, Jones then struck Myers with her sedan and crashed into the deli. Myers is expected to be okay. Jones was charged with vehicular assault and not having a license, while Myers was charged with criminal mischief, assault, and harassment. The Department of Building says the deli does not have any structural damage. Friends and family of a Queens woman killed in a hit-and-run crash are demanding justice. They held a rally yesterday in front of the 102nd Police Precinct Station House in Richmond Hill, calling for the person who killed Rita Prasad on Christmas Eve to turn themselves in. She was in the back seat of an Uber on her way to see family when the car was struck. Prasad was a well-known singer in the Indo-Caribbean community. After a community fridge in Queens that provides free food to people in need was destroyed, New Yorkers are pulling together to help. State Senator Jessica Ramos says that so far more than $20,000 have been raised to replace the fridge. It's located outside of her East Elmhurst district office. It's normally stocked with donated eggs, fruits, vegetables, even baby formula to help families hurt by the pandemic. Ramos said the vandalism and destruction of the fridge happened sometime Friday night.
It's been truly devastating to learn that someone would do this to a real lifeline in our community. At the peak of the pandemic, we were the epicenter of the epicenter. Most of our neighbors here, specifically on this block and in this neighborhood, have not received any economic stimulus. They don't qualify for unemployment insurance. They didn't get any stimulus checks, and they won't. They can't qualify for that. So this is really the way that they're able to put food on the table.
Now, if you'd like to help, you can donate by going to the link there at the bottom of your screen. The U.S. reaches another grim milestone in the pandemic, surpassing more than 350,000 COVID-19 related deaths. That's according to Johns Hopkins University. Many health experts, meanwhile, predict another surge of cases and deaths from holiday gatherings over Christmas Eve and New Year's. Some states like Arizona and North Carolina have reported record cases over the past few days. In Southern California, funeral homes are running out of space. The U.S. by far has reported the most deaths from COVID-19 in the world. Brazil is next with more than 195,000 deaths. Meanwhile, more than 4 million people in the U.S. have received a dose of the coronavirus vaccine as of yesterday morning. That's according to the CDC and includes both Pfizer and Moderna recipients. The agency's tracker shows most recipients are in long-term care facilities. At least 9 million more doses have been distributed and are ready to be used. Nearly a dozen GOP senators will vote to reject President-elect Joe Biden's victory when Congress counts the Electoral College votes this Wednesday. Those 11 Senate Republicans, including Ted Cruz, James Lankford, and Marsha Blackburn, say that they first want an emergency 10-day audit on the election. In their joint statement, they say that they will reject the electors from, quote, disputed states until the audit is completed, despite all states having already certified their results. This as President Trump still insists there was widespread voter fraud despite no credible evidence and countless lawsuits being thrown out by the courts. In the House, more than 100 Republicans are expected to challenge the election results, but as Democrats control the chamber, the objection will not be upheld. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has urged against any efforts to overturn the election results, and several Republican senators have said that they will oppose the objections. The city is reportedly shutting down Manhattan towing operations to comply with a state order from Governor Cuomo. The Post says that dozens of tow truck operators were told to immediately stop towing vehicles in Manhattan. Now, half of the city's car towing takes place in the borough. Illegally parked cars are taken here to the NYPD tow pound on Pier 76 along the Hudson River. Now, the Post says the vehicles are going to be towed to other boroughs until a new plan can be developed. Since 1998, many elected officials have been trying to get it moved off to a newly refurbished state parkland. But this year, Governor Cuomo stuck language in the state budget passed in April that imposes a $3 million fine on the city starting in January for every month that the tow pound remains here. That's on top of an already existing fine of $12 million payable to the state, which will result in a total of $48 million in fines by the end of 2021. Meanwhile, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows has given his support for Congress to object the election certification. On Twitter late last night, Meadows wrote, quote, "We're now at well over 100 House members and a dozen senators ready to stand up for election integrity and object to certification. It's time to fight back," end quote. Now, earlier this week, the New York Times reported that Meadows reportedly convinced President Trump not to introduce a nationwide mask mandate, telling the president it would alienate his strongest supporters and his base would revolt. Former Knick and NBA Hall of Famer Paul Westphal has died. Westphal played in the league from 1972 to 84. He was a 5-time All-Star guard with a 3-time All-NBA first-team selection. He won a championship with the Boston Celtics in 1974 and played for the Knicks between 1981 to 1983. After his playing days, he went on to coach several pro and college teams. His last job was as an assistant coach for the Nets from 2014 to 2016. Now, in 2019, Westphal was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame as a player. Westphal was diagnosed with brain cancer back in August. He was 70 years old. And out of the pandemic outside of the U.S., globally, the numbers stand at more than 84 million cases and 1.8 million deaths. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson warns that more stricter lockdown rules are likely imminent since the new, more contagious version of the virus has driven infection rates to their highest recorded levels. Johnson says that could include school closures and curfews. The UK has tallied more than 50,000 new cases a day over the past 5 days, with a record of nearly 58,000 new infections recorded yesterday. India, the world's second most populous country, has authorized the use of 2 COVID-19 vaccines. The country issued emergency authorization today for one vaccine developed by UK-based drug maker AstraZeneca and Oxford University, and another by the Indian company Bharat Biotech. The initial plan aims to vaccinate 300 million people by August. And Australia has reimposed travel restrictions after new outbreaks in the states of New South Wales and Victoria. Non-residents are banned from entering some areas where the outbreaks are most concentrated, plus non-essential businesses and public transportation are closed. Max Rose announces he will not be running for city mayor in the upcoming election. The former 11th District Congressman made the announcement via Twitter, writing that he made the decision after, quote, serious consideration. Rose also sent a message to the other candidates saying, quote, I urge every candidate to recognize that across the 5 boroughs, no one believes that City Hall is on the side of the working class. People are scared and unsure the New York they love will exist in the years to come, end quote. Now, in November, Rose was defeated in his re-election bid by State Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis, who will be sworn into Congress later today. While not running for mayor, Rose promised that he will still continue to fight for the city. 11 Senate Republicans released a joint statement that they want an emergency 10-day audit on the election and will vote to reject President-elect Joe Biden's victory on Wednesday. In their joint statement, the senators say that they will join GOP Senator Josh Hawley in rejecting the electors from, quote, disputed states until the audit is completed, despite all states having already certified their results. President Trump still insists that there was widespread voter fraud despite no credible evidence and countless lawsuits being thrown out by the courts. Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson is one of those senators planning to object.
One of the points we make is that we are not acting to thwart the democratic process. We're acting to protect it. And what we're saying is we need transparency. And you do not, when you're trying to investigate wrongdoing in elections, you don't have very much time. And so what we're suggesting is let's set up a commission as they did. I know it's a long time ago, 1877, but let's take a look at a bipartisan commission to organize all the allegations.
In the House, more than 100 Republicans are expected to challenge the election results, but as Democrats control the chamber, the objection will not be upheld. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has urged against any efforts to overturn election results, and several Republican senators have said that they will oppose any objections. Another record day is expected for air travel during the pandemic as people head home from their holiday celebrations. The TSA says that 5 out of the last 7 days saw more than 1 million people board a plane around the country, the second highest number of flyers since the start of the pandemic. The holiday travel causing concerns about another coronavirus spike in the coming weeks, especially as New York hits a grim milestone of 1 million cases. At LaGuardia Airport, there is a COVID testing site run by the city. Many of those waiting in line are locals, but others are out-of-state travelers hoping to get out of their 14-day mandatory quarantine by testing negative.
It seems like the responsible thing to do, and if that can make me move about and do my business, then it's worth it to me. I guess we all have a concern, and we have to just be vigilant and wear our masks and stay safe and kind of keep within small little pods.
I live in Astoria, so it was the closest spot, and they had rapid testing available. I had rapid tests in Wisconsin, and then I've gone to other testing sites in Queens back in the summer.
People we spoke to say it took about an hour and a half to get through the full line and receive their test. For more information on testing sites in Queens and throughout the city, you can head to the website there at the bottom of your screen. Republican Senator Josh Hawley will be joined by nearly a dozen of his GOP colleagues in voting to reject President-elect Joe Biden's victory when Congress counts the Electoral College votes this Wednesday. Those 11 Senate Republicans say that they first want an emergency 10-day audit on the election. In their joint statement, they say they will reject the electors from, quote, disputed states until the audit is completed, despite all states having already certified their results. This as President Trump still insists that there was widespread voter fraud, despite no credible evidence and countless lawsuits being thrown out by the courts. In the House, more than 100 Republicans are expected to challenge the election results, but as Democrats control the chamber, the objection will not be upheld. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has urged against any efforts to overturn election results, and several Republican senators have said they will oppose the objections. The new session of Congress begins today at the U.S. Capitol. The session was gavelled in as new and old members of the House and Senate are sworn in throughout the day. The pandemic is impacting the process, however, with only 72 people allowed on the House floor at a given time. The gallery would ordinarily be filled with family members and loved ones. Here are the three new members of the city's House delegation. Progressive Jamal Bowman, a former Bronx principal, is going to take the oath. The congressman-elect unseated Democrat Eliot Engel, who represented parts of the Bronx and Westchester for more than 3 decades. There's also Nicole Maliotakis, who will represent all of Staten Island and parts of Brooklyn, as well as Richie Torres, who will represent parts of the Bronx. California Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi is also expected to be reelected as House Speaker, but perhaps by a smaller margin. As a whole, the Democrats have narrowed their majority this last election. Control of the Senate will rely on Tuesday's Senate runoff elections in Georgia.